Hi, my name is Tara and my pronouns are she, her. I was in foster care for 8 years of my experience, and then the last year I was in kinship care.
So hi, I'm Tobias. My pronouns are he, him. I was in a mixture of different care types. So I was in foster and kinship care over 6 years between the ages of 6 to 12 before reunification with my mum that broke down. So I was an independent minor then from the age of 15. A few of those years I was under life without barriers for my care.
So foster care is when you are put with a family that is not biologically related to you, and kinship care is when you are put with someone like an aunt, an uncle, grandmother, grandfather, that kind of thing.
Kinship care can include family friends as well. Someone known to the family that volunteers to care for the child compared to people who volunteer to care for children that they don't know.
And that was the case for my care experience. I was with a family friend.
It's a really rare story for people to be left with their siblings, let alone for 6 years in care throughout 6 different placements. And I have goosebumps talking about it because it's honestly, I wouldn't be where I am in my life without my big sister and my little sister, and I don't think that they, I know from recent conversations that they agree with that sentiment for themselves. It's insane. We were threatened throughout every placement change that they might have to split us up if we have to move again. I can't stress enough how beneficial it was, but then also I think it made the ease of caring for us easier. People were hesitant because it meant that we were less dependent on them as parents, but at the same time we already had this really solid support system, and when they did lean in and leverage that, it really led to some really great outcomes within each home.
Yeah, so I lived with my sister for most of my care experience, up until the last 2 or 3 placements, and then unfortunately we were split straight off the bat. As soon as I went into care, I was split from my brother. He was still living with our mum, but he did not come into care with us. He was a bit older. Yeah, so there was a very big period where I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years where I didn't get to see my brother at all. And even though me and my sister still had each other's phone numbers, contacts, that sort of thing, it still was very difficult for us to see and make time for each other, since our carers weren't trying to facilitate that as much either.
It's almost discouraged to keep contact with people who are family or family friends outside of who has been deemed appropriate, and it's really hard because you're going from having these supports or having these various kind of people who often in times are chipping in where your parents are failing because they someone has to, and then when you end up in the care system, you just have a lot of those relationships taken away, and they don't encourage the contact between siblings, between you and previous carers. It's really kind of seen as a tension point, which I'd love to see change.
I found it was mostly caseworkers. I would say hey, that last foster care, I really liked them, can I see them again? They're oh no, that probably isn't a good idea, or I don't think they want to see you. And then I learned later on that those foster carers did want to see me, and that was really heartbreaking. It almost was is there something wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Am I wrong?
It's funny because I think that they see it as an easier way to transition,
yeah.
is if you have no kind of contact. They're oh, that's easier for you to move on from. But then as a kid in care, when you move to a new place and it feels like the old place doesn't want anything to do with you after you've had an attachment to them in some kind of parental way, but that actually makes you feel less comfortable in the new home, because it's if people can get rid of me like that and don't even want to talk to me after, how do we invest in this relationship then?
People kind of have to remember that it's you're switching parents, especially for children and young people. I spoke to a child or a young person who had 108 placements while they were in care. That is you switching out and bouncing around parents. It's not just homes, it's with the people who are supposed to be your parents. Yeah, and that's not great for a child to just constantly switch out parents. I know for me, in my experience, the very first time I moved from my auntie's partner, I transitioned over a year. We went and had respite with these new carers. It was great. And then the next time I moved, it was fast. I think within a week they were we need you out, I'm sorry. And then there have been times in my care experience where I've been asked to pack up everything in an hour, and it got to a point where I was sort of I'm not gonna unpack anymore, because I might not stay here for that long, and I don't want to have to pack everything up in an hour, because I don't think I can do that.
I definitely feel that. I've been on a sleepover once and had them be you can't actually finish the sleepover, you need to be dropped off at a different house because you're not allowed to go home. I was wait a second, what? Thankfully my sisters were going to the same house as me, because I wasn't with them at the time, and they're oh, you can't actually go back to this place you've been living for over a year.
Yeah.
Almost 2 years at the time, really. Very insane how they can kind of switch on the we really do try and put these processes in place, but then at other times we're just so happy to be well, the situation kind of doesn't require it, and it's We did actually make these processes for a reason, like even if you think the situation's different.
And that's my thing as well. All of the situations that I can think of in my care experience, nobody was getting hurt. Me and my sister, were safe there, and yet they still chose to move us in such quick ways. And I really think that there should be accountability for foster carers and caseworkers about the time and the length of the transition period for the young person, because it is so destabilizing to have to move your life in under a day. I don't speak to any of them. I think part of that was just because I wasn't encouraged to, and I also know that the caseworkers encourage the foster carers to not reach out to me either.
Yeah, I still speak to one of them. I still know by heart the phone number for another one, and I did actually call them like a few times, but it just, because of the sudden removal, and it was like even calling them when I finally got a chance, it felt so, like they were happy to hear from me, but it felt so disconnected, and it felt so like hurtful on both sides. I really knew what they had lost by losing us so suddenly, and then I think having me show back up after like I was a 10-year-old and then calling them at 14 years old, and they're like, okay. So I still speak to one of them aside from that one, and I've been like in contact with them on Facebook pretty much since I was 12, but not as many as I want to. Not as many of the people who like made active, meaningful difference and impacts in my life. Like I don't get to really recognize them further than just that little bit of part of my life that they were in.
I think I've been a part of these advisory for going on 7 months, I think. So it's been a relatively short amount of time, but I have loved it. It is awesome.
This is my 3rd senior leadership team meeting. I've been coming along for 3 years. I would like to think that the other leadership team who come along think that I'm beneficial here too, but I think a lot of the reason I'm here, like authenticity, accountability, all of the stuff that Carly will say, because she really does understand why lived experience is such an integral part of this work. I love making a difference and making the lives of people who might have been in my experience better for them. I would rather use my experiences for good, and that helps me give them meaning. I'm really privileged to be able to articulate how I feel, and I really feel like I have an opportunity to then bring that and those words into a space like this, where often it can be really hard to, at this level, go back down to who we're for, like our main stakeholder really, which is the people who use our services. Yeah, children. I really like to talk about the fact that they're everyone's children. Like once they've been removed from their families, they are the state's responsibility. That means they are your responsibility. Every single one of us has a responsibility to every single one of the children in the state's care. So what are you doing for that responsibility? Like where are you stepping up to meet that? And it doesn't have to be being a carer, although that is great and we need more, but like just what are you doing within your community for the young people around you and the people in the community who need community?
I think one of the most positive moments for me around being a part of that Barry's Youth Advisory Group is when I went to the training for family time. I don't do a lot of work around the reunification space. A lot of my work is bettering the foster care system for the young people in it. So it was really interesting to see we can prepare biological parents and help biological parents to keep those children and young people. And I think that stems from my experience with my own parents. They definitely weren't ready for me, but there are things that we can do. So yeah, that was really eye-opening for me, and I also got to see from a practitioner's point of view as well some of the challenges they have with implementing these strategies and then de-implementing some of the old strategies.
My favorite part of like all of this work throughout the time has been watching the other young people come with me. Like it's so beautiful to see another young person in this space at the leadership team meeting and watching young people really stand up for themselves, stand up for the people who will be coming behind them. I think it's just beautiful. I really love watching these people who have for a long time not had a voice turn around and be like, no, this is my voice and you are gonna listen, and people standing back and being like, yes, we are going to listen. Thank you for speaking, because that's what they deserve.
I think a lot of it also comes down to the organisation. Young people need to be given the tools and the skills to be able to do this kind of work. And if organisations don't provide that, they can't effectively get the young person's input. So I think having programs that sort of give young people the advocacy skills, and especially giving young people the information around this is how this program connects to this is how this organisation connects to the government, that kind of thing, because that is something that I've had to learn and has been really useful for me to systemically advocate for children and young people.